This is China. These images of China were broadcast on a giant screen in New York Times Square in 2011, a promotional display that is a part of a major campaign to promote a true image of China abroad. This is how China wants to be seen by the Western world. A country of scientists, athletes, artists, movie stars, and astronauts. China wants to be seen as a nice and peaceful place.
And their fields of interest, where they work, and I think it could be inspirational in a way.
This traditional wash painting is drawing a picture of contemporary China, along with iconic imagery, the Great Wall, bird's nest, and CCTV new building, a dynamic modern country. But what do Westerners think is real China? 3 Australian foreign correspondents who have lived and worked in China tell us from experiences.
Big, busy, delicious, overwhelming, confusing.
Fascinating, uplifting, depressing.
Fascinating, confusing, curious, magnificent, strange.
Ever since, a fleet of British warships sailed into China 173 years ago, a barrage of violence was unleashed, bringing the country to its knees. From that moment, the Western world used to call China the sick man of East Asia. Since then, the China modern leaders to build a strong and wealthy nation. This is current President Mr. Xi Jinping's speech recently in Tiananmen Square.
不断的艰辛探索，终于找到了一条实现中华民族伟大复兴的正确道路。
The Australian Broadcasting Corporation (ABC) has had correspondents and a bureau in China for 40 years.
It might sound funny, but I'm beginning to enjoy these morning and afternoon spins down the main street here in Peking.
The world, a dynamic globe filled with...
One of 20 ABC's correspondents worked in Beijing. Jen Harchen was born in Hong Kong and had a Chinese family background. She had a Beijing posting from 1995 to 2001. Jen has just returned from a personal journey back to China 10 years after posting. So what did she find this time?
How polluted the sky was. I think I saw a little tiny... Every day it didn't rain, but I saw blue sky on my last day, just a very small bit of blue sky. In China the sun is red, in here it's yellow. That's because we don't have the haze over the sun.
Eric Campbell is one of Australia's most experienced international reporters. In a 20-year career, he has worked in more than 40 countries and covered some of the biggest breaking stories of the past decade. From 2001 to 2003, he was ABC's China correspondent. He says China is a contradiction.
The place of the Chinese Communist Party in a capitalist society, because obviously China is it's a very business-oriented, mercantilist society now, but it has a communist party. So there's a real kind of interesting contradiction or development in that, working out what the new China is, what the new Communist Party is, and how it all connects together.
John Garnell agrees. He just flew back from China recently after finishing 6 years as the AG's correspondent based in China. He said that China's rise as an economic superpower has come at a cost with pressure and injustice in Chinese society.
Welcome to Melbourne Residential Time is 2 p.m.
I think there's a couple of things going on, like the poor are much less poor than they used to be, that's for sure. But what's happening is there's an untouchable elite that's developing, and more so than in other countries that I've been to, where if you have power, if you have connections, and if you have money, there is a sense that you can do almost anything you want.
The Lowy Institute's Linda Jacobson has lived and worked in China for 20 years and published 6 books on Chinese and East Asian society. She says China needs urgent reforms.
There's a lot of pressure on the elites because of this acknowledgement of the problems in society. But on the other hand, the elites, of course, like in any country, don't want to give up their own privileges. So how to transform the system? I think everyone in China that I have spoken to wants to change China. They want to reform the system. But how and in what order do you reform it? I think that's the big pressure at the moment.
And this is an example of the big problem, corruption.
判决书认定，公诉机关指控薄熙来受贿人民币2044万余元，贪污人民币500万元及滥用职权的事实清楚，证据确实充分，指控罪名成立。
Bo Xilai was one of China's very senior leaders. He was secretary of Chongqing, one of the most important cities in China. He was brought down in a scandal involving corruption, and his wife was implicated in the murder of a British businessman. This is a negative image of Chinese corruption that the West is seeing, and that Beijing wants to change. The trial was open to international media, and that shows a new openness for China.
The process was fascinating. So here's a guy who's the son of the revolution. In many ways, his daddy was bigger than Xi Jinping's daddy. So a big princeling, brought down through a series of conspiracies and accidents, found himself in jail, was given by prevailing Chinese standards and a remarkably open court trial. I mean, it wasn't perfect at all, and certainly the verdict was never in doubt, but it was much more transparent than any other significant trial in modern Chinese history. So that was fascinating, seeing Bo in all his kind of confidence and aristocratic kind of presumptuousness that he could speak, and he could speak his mind, tearing down prosecution witnesses. That was fascinating. And then watching presumably Xi Jinping and people in power just letting him do that. Bo's going to be in jail for a long, long time. We know a little bit about the case, probably more so than we have in any other political scandal, because it was very transparent in many ways. But there's lots behind the scenes that I'm sure it's going to take years and probably decades to fully understand.
Hello, 大家好，欢迎您收听托 AC 澳洲华人电台托 AC 会客室。In the West, the Chinese migrants play a significant role of promoting the China's images to the world. Tom Wang is an Australian Chinese businessman and independent candidate of the federal Senate election this year. He has been the Australian citizen for over 20 years. Tom was able to gain keen Australian political support for the Beijing Olympics.
Tom, 那是不是因为西方的人Western people 对中国了解不够多？
从客观上来讲，也存在这种的现象。那么同时呢，我觉得必须看到，在越来越多的报道和媒体方面，已经开始正面的把中国的这种发生的这种变化给报道出来了。因为这是一个客观存在的问题，我们必须要去客观的看到，这是同样的。那么再有一点来讲的话呢，我觉得对于中国更要考虑怎么样去宣传自己。
China is doing this with CCTV. China Central Television is the national television broadcaster of China. Together with a team of highly professional international correspondents and local journalists, CCTV News aims to become the premier source of information on China, Asia, and the world.
美丽中国与全球共度美好时光。这里是中央电视台在澳大利亚悉尼，我是。
China's former ambassador to the United Kingdom, Zheng Gang, has.
CCTV is for China what CNN is to the USA. It's a way of winning over people with culture. It's called soft
the
power.
country's increasing soft power and international image.
If the country is in great shortage of hard power, it be impossible for soft power.
What is soft power? Wang Ningxun is a professor of Chinese Media and Cultural Studies at China Research Center, UTS.
Soft power refers to the things that are less tangible, that are more to do with the cultural aspect of power. So it's about ideas, it's about beliefs, about values, and it's about the people's everyday life. It's what makes a country more attractive, and not through the coercion of power, not through imposing the military or economic sort of strength over another country. It's through getting to other country, through making your own culture and your own lifestyle more appealing and interesting. So people will automatically be drawn to you rather than being forced to accept your values and ideas.
CCTV had over 50 foreign bureaus all over the world. The CCTV Africa Bureau in Kenya is one of them.
China's role in Africa's development was...
Soft power is working for that.
Africa not prepared for, because we had war. We are coming from bloody, from deaths. But we want to work together with China. We believe in China.
Studies show the African has a positive view of China as it increases engagement. Inviting the Western superstars to China is another approach to export China's culture. Celine Dion joined the CCTV's Chinese New Year's Evening Gala 2013. She featured with Song Zu in Chinese top folk singer.
You have to feel the music. You have to feel the passion. It's very difficult to pinpoint passion. It's very difficult to pinpoint emotion. This is something that is around us, and I think it lives through music. When I say Moli Hua, it makes me want to be soft. It makes me want to do this, and it makes me want to do this. So.
Good evening, Edwin Ma in Melbourne. Good evening, Edwin Ma in Melbourne, and once again the news emanates from Melbourne.
Do you remember him? Edwin Ma is a New Zealand-born TV journalist. He established his broadcast career in Australia, became one of the first Western news readers of CCTV in 2004.
The South Korean military
Many critics, like Los Angeles Times, accused him of just being China's Western mouthpiece for its propaganda. How do Western reporters see the CCTV English news channel's present job? Do they want to take them up to mass problem right now?
Maybe when I was younger, I might have taken that. I would still be interested to work for CCTV to see what their views of things are. So there's a part of me that would be curious about that job.
No, I wouldn't, because I wouldn't be free to say what I think is correct. I mean, I'd sometimes watch CCTV, and sometimes their stories are great, sometimes it's propaganda. And, you know, as a journalist, I don't want to do propaganda.
So, is CCTV succeeding in exporting China's soft power to the globe?
Chinese Central Television is seen as primarily the mouth organ of the Communist Party. And as a result of that, people's first sort of association with CCTV is a tool of propaganda. And so that severely limits its effectiveness and is a level of resonance that it might actually generate among the Western audience. So in that sense, the impact or influence is actually quite limited.
But soft power is also about film and theatre that reaches Western audiences. This is Sydney Seymour Theatre. Tonight, there is a Chinese historical epic on the stage. How many Western audiences are there? And do they really like it? Let me tell you. Cathay Playhouse, run by local Chinese, began in 2003 as a non-profit organization registered in New South Wales. All actors are Chinese migrants and Chinese students studying in Australia. To celebrate its 10th anniversary this year, Cathay is presenting a Chinese classic story, Palace of Desire. The theater has 600 seats. Tonight just has one Westerners in the audience. So why have other Westerners not come?
Well, it was my first time watching Chinese drama. I was a bit worried at first when I came to see the show because I didn't know much about Chinese history, so I was a bit worried I wouldn't be able to understand and recognize the characters.
But this fairy tale is not the real China. Do we really get to see the real China when Australian correspondents report from up there?
The entrance to Beijing's Forbidden City.
On 28th October, 5 people killed in the terrorist attack in Tiananmen Square. They are Uyghurs from Xinjiang province. Chinese authorities tried to stop BBC but could not.
You know, 2013, the pictures certainly got out. People have been arrested. China believes it's a certain group of people who carried out that attack, but I definitely think there's a change. I think whether it's what the government wants or not, it's more open.
During Jane Hutton's time as correspondent, she was detained by Chinese authorities on 4 occasions while in pursuit of a story.
It was a really simple thing. A shopping centre closed down and a lot of people who had shops in the shopping centre, their goods were inside and they had lost money, sometimes as much as maybe 2,000 Australian dollars or around 10,000 renminbi. And so the people were demanding their money back and they stopped traffic. And maybe there were about 50 people and they went onto the road and they had banners. And so we filmed them and I was greedy. I wanted more pictures. So we probably stayed longer than we should have. And then the police came and just literally, grabbed us each one and pulled us away. And they pulled us into the shopping centre. And then we were questioned for about an hour.
Without camera, is it easy for the print press media's reporters to talk to the Chinese?
I mean, and being in the press, in the Western press, can do 2 things. One, it draws attention to yourself, so you come under greater scrutiny, which can attract trouble to you. But it can also provide a level of attraction of protection, because I usually make sure that I follow up with people after I've interviewed them. I let authorities know that I've taken interest in the case. It's not at all a waterproof defence, but it does allow some people a level of protection, because there is a chance that if officials go back to them, cause more trouble to them, then it's only going to make the story bigger and it's going to end up in the newspaper again. And that happened on several occasions in my time up there.
Clearly, every correspondent had this similar experience in China.
Well, when I was there, it was a very restricted period for foreign journalists. We weren't allowed to travel unless we had permission from the local Y-ban, and we would fly somewhere, be met by an official. He would be with us the whole time. We were filming. It was very difficult to talk to people independently. I was surprised the last time I went there, just before the Olympic Games. I was amazed by how much more freedom foreign journalists had. I was able to film a protest. I'd never filmed a protest before because, we just couldn't do that. And when I was filming this protest, police came and tried to arrest us, and we were able to show the regulations from Wen Jiabao saying we could film whatever we want. So they had to let us go. So yeah, I think it's changed a lot. But there are still restrictions on where you can go. It's very difficult to go to Tibet. If there's been any unrest anywhere, like Xinjiang, it's very difficult to get permission to go there. There's still enormous sensitivities. But I think compared to when I was there 10 years ago, it's changed markedly.
Away from reporting politics, these correspondents found the Chinese people very welcoming of Westerners.
I was overwhelmed with China. It's an incredibly friendly place. I mean, the number of times people would just, invite you into their houses and give you something to eat. Australians would never do that. We're a very suspicious people. But, Chinese people were amazingly friendly. Chinese officials were amazingly hostile. So there was that disconnect. I would have loved to have seen a lot more of China and been able to travel more freely and reported more widely, because there were so many great stories there. Unfortunately, it was more of a combative relationship, which tended to produce stories about the combat rather than about the country. No, I think the rise of China is a great thing, and I do understand why Chinese people look at what Western powers did to colonise China, and they never want that to happen again. I mean, China is taking its place as a great power, and rightly so. I just hope that the Communist Party chills out a bit and has a bit more trust in the people to lead their lives the way they want.
In 2008, it was China's turn to take the world stage when the Olympics came to Beijing. Chinese singer Liu Huan and British singer Sarah Brightman stood on the platform and sang the theme song, You and Me. 2,000 performers then held out umbrella with smiling faces of young children. It was quite different from previous presentations by Western countries like Sydney's Flame and Atlanta Summon the Heroes. 5 years later, how is China seen by the West?
There are lots of good people, in many ways it's an awful system. And so those good people, awful system, bad people all kind of mixed together.
What I do know is that Chinese eyes and maybe Western or Australian eyes see things very, very differently.
Most people are interested in China because they're fascinated with the culture, the language, the fact that China has grown so much, and of course in the business sense, how to make use of the opportunities that China's economic growth offers people outside of China. So there's lots of good news to offset bad news.
The actual interfering with what the media does, putting the hand over the camera, creates a negative image. Stop doing that. Just let journalists go around freely and report in the country, and I think China would have a much more positive image.